Trinidad and Tobago has announced that U.S. Marines will be deployed to conduct military exercises as planned as Washington increases its naval presence in the Caribbean. In Chile, the Electoral Service conducted a national voting drill with the aim of familiarizing citizens with the election process ahead of the general elections to be held this Sunday. Officials in Al Nasser hospital in Palestine confirmed the recovery of the bodies of 15 Palestinians from Israel as part of the implementation of the ceasefire agreement. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Sofia Fernandez from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In a new threat against Latin America and the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago has announced that U.S. Marines will be deployed to conduct military exercises as Washington increases its naval presence in the Caribbean. Under the pretext of combating gang violence and gun crime, the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit will remain in the country until November 21st. The maneuvers will include night operations in urban and rural areas, raising concerns about the normalization of foreign troops in citizens' daily lives. The deployment of land is happening at the same time as the arrival of the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, as part of the Pentagon's Operation Southern Spear. These actions violate international law and threaten the declaration of Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace. Also in a statement, the network of intellectuals and artists in defense of humanity denounced the aggressions being carried out in the Caribbean Sea by the United States government. We condemned and alarmed the international community to the new escalation by the U.S. government with the dispatch of the aircraft carrier Gerald R. Ford, which joins the military forces already present, announcing the implementation of the Operation Southern Spear plan under the baseless pretext of the fight against drug trafficking. Let us denounce that this military escalation could turn into a military confrontation against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which would bring about a massacre and geopolitical destabilization in the American continent and the world. In turn, through a communique, Casa de las Americas in Cuba denounced the military escalation by the U.S. government, which not only affects Venezuela, but also the self-determination and sovereignty of the peoples of the Americas and the Caribbean. It states that Casa de las Americas denounced this escalation from the outset, aware that it is not only a danger to Venezuela, but also a slap in the face to the self-determination and sovereignty of our peoples. An action against any of the brother countries of the continent is a blow to all. While some focus on the images of Gerald R. Ford as if it were a video game, those of us who have experienced imperial aggression and violence firsthand condemn the preamble to a very serious crime and call for international solidarity with the peoples of the region. In other news in Venezuela, the third Turkey 2025 Expo Fair is moving forward, with the participation of more than 40 companies that are strengthening Turkish-Venezuelan cooperation. The event is being held to mark the 75 years of diplomatic relations between Turkey and Venezuela, and is highlighted as a key venue for investors to meet. Also at the fair, participants have exhibited and promoted culture and projected joint development between the two nations. It is worth noting that this meeting will take place at the Simón Bolívar Park Convention Center in La Carlota, Miranda State, until Saturday, November 15.
For us, these relations with Venezuela and this experience in general are very important, thanks to the fact that we have had previous discussions and have carried out many joint activities related to all of this. We know that there is great potential in commerce, Venezuela, and especially in this area of treaties and agreements. Basically, the Institute's mission in between 60 and 70 countries give us the authority to be here at this exhibition fair. We also share and distribute information about the Institute's mission, which is Turkish culture and all kinds of exhibitions to it. This is the first time we have come to Venezuela with these products, and I find it very interesting in terms of the culture and exports between Turkey and Venezuela. I'm very interested in this process.
And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. In Chile, the Electoral Service conducted a national voting drill with the aim of familiarizing citizens with the election process ahead of the general elections to be held on Sunday. Election officials unveiled the new ballot that will be used in the presidential and parliamentary elections on November 16th. They also highlighted the size of the electoral roll, the obligation to vote, the participation of Chileans abroad, and the role of the armed forces in guarding the material and maintaining public order. It should be noted that during this election, Chileans will elect the president of the nation, new senators, and members of parliament. Moving now to Argentina, an explosion occurred Friday night at a chemical factory in the Ezeiza Industrial Park in Buenos Aires, spreading alarm among the residents in the area and leaving more than 20 injured. The shockwave shattered glass windows in nearby houses and even blew roofs off, while the Ezeiza Cañuelas highway was also closed as a result of the incident. At this time, there are no reports of fatalities, but many hospitals in the area are receiving people with burns and other injuries caused by the tragic explosion. Local authorities ordered citizens to remain indoors, as a toxic cloud had formed. Meanwhile, the cause of the blast has not yet been determined. With 60,000 people from around the world participating in COP30, there is a growing tension between business community supporters of green capitalism and the social movements and activists who support eco-socialism as the best way to fight climate change. Our correspondent Brian Meir has more details.
The organizers of the UN Climate Summit underway in Belém are trying to rally everyone behind a common fight against the climate crisis. But there seem to be unreconcilable differences among different participants. For example, there are businesses and foundations which they financially support who argue that corporations are capable of playing a leadership role in things like the transformation to renewable energy. Many activists disagree.
Large corporations are in bed with governments so that they can take over these negotiations and use climate crisis as an opportunity to create more money and profit from all the actions. And we are seeing that instead of democratizing and decolonizing the energy systems, they are trying to take over. We are seeing the same big companies who have been responsible for the climate crisis, the big oil, they are now trying to turn green and take over these sectors. And that's something which is not acceptable. They are coming after our natural resources, our critical minerals, and they're trying to promote green capitalism, and that's what we need to fight against.
For many of the estimated 30,000 members of the social movements, indigenous nations, and forest dweller communities participating in the Alternative Peoples Summit underway at Pará Federal University across town, the most effective way to end environmental devastation is through the transformation to socialism.
A crise ambiental é uma expressão.
The environmental crisis is an expression of the destructive and predatory mode of production of capitalism.
Capitalista, né? E na nossa perspectiva,
Our perspective is that the fight against the environmental crisis and the fight for another project for
o
society
projeto de sociedade exige uma transformação radical.
demands a radical transformation in the mode of production and distribution of wealth in our country.
Distribuição das riquezas no nosso país, né? No fundo,
Therefore, we defend the socialization of our wealth and we defend another form of the production and reproduction of life.
outra forma de produção e reprodução da vida.
If there's one thing that most participants of COP30 and the People's Summit seem to agree on, however, it's that the climate change crisis is a reality and huge changes will be needed to curtail it. Brian Meir, teleSUR, Belém.
In other news, over 13.9 million voters in Ecuador are called to vote in the referendum to be held next Sunday, November 16th. President Daniel Noboa's referendum asked Ecuadorian vote on the establishment of a constituent assembly to draft a new constitution to replace the one approved during the term of former President Rafael Correa from 2007 to 2017. The other three questions are about the reinstatement of foreign military bases, the elimination of public funding for political organizations, and the reduction of assembly members from 151 to 73. The referendum follows the national strike from September to October 2025. The government heavily repressed the strike, leaving at least 3 dead, over 470 injured, and hundreds of reports of human rights violation by security forces. Moving on to Costa Rica, a collision in San Jose between a heavy goods vehicle and the train that runs between the capital and the northern Costa Rican cities of Heredia and Alajuela left 12 people injured. The National Red Cross determined that 11 of those injured in an accident in the capital neighborhood of Tibás are in a stable condition and one is in urgent condition. Approximately 100 people traveling in the train cars were safely evacuated. The collision caused severe damage to the train, now repaired by an interinstitutional technical team, immediately mobilized to the site to rehabilitate the passage. In other news, on Friday, Mexican enforcement officers of Jalisco and seized 108 kilograms of crystal meth and 2.8 tons of marijuana. Agents executed 5 search warrants in Tonalá with the aim of dismantling this group, which is accused of modifying industrial machinery for the transport of drugs. After raiding the premises, law enforcement agencies arrested the suspects, including a minor, and also seized 41 cartridges, a vehicle, and 3 motorcycles. As a result of the confrontation with criminal groups, the authorities have arrested 37,000 people for high-impact crimes and seized 300 tons of drugs and 18,981 weapons during the current administration, which began in October 2024. We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break coming, but we'll be right back with more from the South. Don't go away. Welcome back. In Haiti, the Ministry of Public Health reinforced epidemiological surveillance in the southeast of the country, with the aim of strengthening local capacity for the active detection of cholera cases. Work teams have deployed staff to neighborhoods and displacement sites to ensure immediate care. At the same time, they have supplied essential items, including orals, rehydration, salts, and vital medicines to the affected communities. Between September and November of this year, 370 suspected cases were identified, resulting in 75 confirmed cases and 17 deaths. On the other hand, although the cyclone did not make direct landfall, Hurricane Melissa brought heavy rains and flooding damaged water and sanitation infrastructure, exacerbating the risk of transmission in overcrowded neighborhoods with inadequate sanitation. In other news, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said Friday that the war in Sudan is an armed conflict over resources and raw materials, in which the international community must take action. The statement was made at a special session of the United Nations Human Rights Council on crimes committed during and after the siege of the city of El Fasher. Turk also emphasized that the Security Council must refer and denounce the abuses in this conflict to the International Criminal Court. The UN official informed that thousands of civilian killings, ethnically motivated executions, sexual violence, kidnappings, arbitrary detentions, and attacks on healthcare workers in the region have been reported after the fall of the city of El Fasher. Turk reiterated his calls for the international community to impose an arms embargo on the entire territory of Sudan and not just the western region of Darfur. In other news, the United Nations organization stated that 114 Lebanese civilians have lost their lives due to violations of the ceasefire agreement since the start of November by the Israeli regime. The spokesperson for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Tamim Al-Ketan, announced that civilian deaths have continued to rise since the ceasefire began, and the residents of the area have lived in instability and fear for more than 2 years. She also said that the Israel regime has once again invaded Lebanese territory by building a concrete wall in the area, and is threatening the fragile balance along the border. It should be noted that since the beginning of the Israeli offensive in October 2023, more than 4,000 people have been killed and almost 17,000 injured in the country. Officials in Al Nasser hospital in Palestine confirmed the recovery of the bodies of 15 Palestinians from Israel as part of the implementation of the ceasefire agreement. This action represents the latest step in the implementation of the terms of the fragile ceasefire agreement negotiated by the United States between Israel and Hamas. The return came shortly after militants handed over the body of one of the last 4 Israeli detainees. This brings the total number of bodies returned by Hamas to Israel to 25, since the ceasefire began on October 10th. Meanwhile, in the United States, Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib and 20 other representatives introduced a resolution in the U.S. Congress to officially recognize the Israeli offensive in Gaza as genocide. The proposal presented this Friday in the House of Representatives declares that Israel has committed the crime of genocide against the Palestinian people. The text demands the immediate cessation of the transfer of weapons that could be used to commit atrocities in Gaza and supports the facilitation of internal investigations and the adoption of legal measures. The resolution comes in a critical context. The 10-year Memorandum of Understanding that grants Israel $3.8 billion in annual military aid is set to expire in 2026, which will rekindle the debate on U.S. assistance. In Antigua, Guatemala City, the 9th edition of the Flower Festival will begin, an event that brings together thousands of visitors to enjoy floral art and other expressions. The opening parade, entitled Spring Begins, featured 2 school bands and 13 floats that travel through iconic locations in the city, such as the Arch of Santa Catalina and the Cathedral of San Jose. With the slogan Antigua, City of Arts where stars bloom, the festival pays tribute to outstanding national and international artists, including Efraín Recinos and Frida Kahlo. From November 15th to 17th, the cities will be transformed into an open-air museum with 10 competing in various categories. In other news, Spain prepares to host Expo Artesano Madrid 2025, the first Colombian folk art fair in Europe. From November 19 to 23rd, the Galileo Cultural Center in Madrid will host a fair that will bring together designers, artisans, and collectors to exhibit fashion, jewelry, and traditional pieces that reflect the cultural richness of the Latin American country. The event, organized by Crafts Colombia and the Colombian Embassy in Spain, seeks to promote dialogue and cultural exchange between the 2 countries, highlighting the identity and stories behind each handcrafted piece. like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Sophie Fernandez. Thank you for watching.